Celtics Beat, brought to you by PrizePicks.
Today is Friday, June 27th, and this is Celtics Beat on the CLNS Media Network, leading online provider of audio-video coverage of the Boston Celtics. I'm Adam Kaufman. Episode 630 features Spotrac's Keith Smith.
And I'm Evan Valenti. Today's show is powered by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the official daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media. Download the app today. Use the promo code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to a new Celtics Beat. Great to be back here with you. Adam Kaufman, Evan Valenti, always along for the ride. Of course, we have got our special guest today, and one I am very excited to welcome back to the program, Keith Smith from Spotrac, among other outlets, has the front office show with Trevor Lane as well, as I'm sure people have been tuning in rapidly to all the takes that Keith has had, all the tweets, all the knowledge, all the everything as it relates to the salary cap now on the heels of the completion of the now two-night NBA draft and a few new members of the Celtics in tow, and of course only days away from the start of free agency. A couple other things have been going on as it relates to the Boston Celtics of late, though. How's a quiet week, guys? Keith, you've been keeping busy?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's why I'm like really unshaven and look like a mess, because I don't have time for any of those life things, right? Who has time to clean themselves up when you have salary cap sheets to update?
It's
how's my shirt look? I had some people in the comments section say my shirt was a little too oversized last week. Is it looking all right?
Yeah, I mean, you're fitted. Look, you work in the fashion business. For anyone that doesn't know that, I think you got a better handle on it than I do. I'm just sitting here in a t-shirt.
I will say a lot of those made me laugh last week. So all of you in the comment section, a couple of you got me good, and I embrace if you're gonna poke fun at me. I love that stuff. My favorite one years ago when I had the longer hair, some in the comment section said I looked like Charles Manson. like maybe my favorite insult of all time. I legitimately laughed, like I was crying laughing so hard. I was like, because it was unfortunately pretty accurate. I was like, man, maybe I should cut my hair or shave my beard or something, because that's dangerously accurate.
Look, every 2-3 shows in the YouTube comment section, these people are absolutely right. I'm doing it now. I get the, all right, Kaufman, like, you talk too much. Like, dial it back. Let's hear from the guests a little bit. What can I say? I get off and running. I like to, I don't know, like to give you my thoughts. All right, well, let's jump into this. And by the way, keep ripping on us in the comments. It's fine. We do genuinely enjoy it. Occasionally, we'll even write back, but we certainly don't mind. Speak your minds. It's encouraged. It means you're out there. We appreciate that. Look, the biggest news surrounding the Celtics over the last few days, we all know, unless, I don't know, you were on some crazy vacation, you've completely tuned out of the NBA over the last several days. Celtics championship core, as it existed about a year ago at this time, is no more. We know that Jason Tatum, in all likelihood, isn't going to play all of next year after his playoff Achilles injury. The questions of trades surrounding Jaylen Brown and Derek White, they are still with the club. Free agents, Al Horford and Luke Kornet still. But two guys that are definitely gone, Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. Holiday winds up going back, kind of, I guess back. Can we say back to the Portland Trail Blazers? He was there. He was part of that Rob Williams trade originally, but he goes back to the Portland Trail Blazers. Anthony Simons comes over to Boston. Will he be a member of the Celtics going forward? Time will tell. We'll get into that. And Porzingis, in what was more of a, you got some talent back in the Holiday deal, more of a straight salary dump for Kristaps Porzingis, as George Niang, a Massachusetts native, winds up coming over. Multiple second-round picks exchanged in the deal as well. He goes to the Atlanta Hawks to team up with Trae Young and try and lift that team's floor, ceiling, all of it in a wide-open Eastern Conference. So the moves, as far as I'm concerned, guys, are far from over for the Boston Celtics. Hell, your starting lineup in terms of bigs right now would feature Niang and one of the newest draft picks in theory. So that's the other thing, by the way, on the draft. I just want to hammer home the Kaufman talks too much thing. Let's lean into it. Hugo Gonzalez, the first-round pick, was one of the biggest steals of the draft, according to some. A trade with Orlando netted an extra second-rounder. They brought in Kentucky's Amari Williams. He is a good passing big. And Max Shulga out of VCU, I believe. He came in, just prior to the end of the second round. So Look, these are the changes so far, Keith, but the most notable thing about all of it, and Brad Stevens has touched on this a number of times in recent days, the team trying to regain financial flexibility and get itself into a better place to avoid the harsh, uncomfortable realities of being over the second apron, which, is something that you've been talking about and studying for literally years at this point. And Brad said he didn't even realize quite how ugly it was until it started staring him in the face about a month ago. So Boston, with these moves, is now, at least temporarily, below the second apron by almost $5 million, still above the first apron, which makes them obviously a repeat offender and a significant tax-paying team in this moment. Will they continue to sell off and get even below that threshold? Will they add? What's it mean for the free agents? This is just sort of your syllabus of what is to come here on this edition of Celtics Beat. So Keith, before we kind of go piece by piece with all of it, your overarching thoughts on the last, let's call it 4 or 5 days for Boston.
Yeah, we're here now, right? This is the day we knew was going to come eventually. I think I probably even said it with you guys at some point on when I've joined you in the past. I didn't think they would break the title team up if they were in the finals, and definitely not if they were coming off back-to-back championships. I didn't think that's how a new ownership group was going to want to start their tenure. And I know that's not all official yet, but whatever. They weren't going to want to go there. That they were going to run it back, and they just will figure it all out down the line. We'll let those things come. But they lost in the second round. Jason Tatum's out for most, if not all, of next season. And now it's not the right word to use, but they have the cover to start this process, right? You could start the process and just say, hey, we have to do it eventually. We're not going to be title contenders this year, which quite frankly, they're not if you don't have Jason Tatum. So let's start the process of making the team be in a position where they can do more when Tatum is back and when they're ready to build back up. And that's part of this. Those second apron restrictions are really, really tough. And because they've had 2 years in a row already in the second apron, they've already hit one of the long-term penalties, which is you get a draft pick frozen. That 2032 pick is frozen. So I think now we're in a position of we're here. We knew we were going to get here. It kind of sucks that it's now, but it is what it is. And they're on their way to whatever this season's going to be, and then building the next iteration of the Celtics.
I got to call Brad out. I think he lied to everybody when he said, I didn't really understand the penalties until it was staring me in the face. I think everybody in that building knew exactly what was going on. I mean, anybody in this particular box think that Mike Zarin didn't understand every single iteration of what was coming down the pike here? If we know Mike Zarin the way we know Mike Zarin, and we're a big, very pro Mike Zarin podcast, I just think, to back up what Keith said, I think it's just because, they didn't win a back-to-back titles. Obviously, you win back-to-back championships, you don't try and break that up unless something seriously goes haywire. It's just this unfortunate thing that they're into with the CBA, and everybody's kind of complained about it. And we've talked about it ad nauseum on this show about how it favors player movement over continuity, and whether that's good for the bad or for the league. We don't know. Keith, I am of the mindset that the CBA, and I don't know if the owners knew this at the time, but for the people in the content business, this is actually kind of gold, right? What fuels our numbers, right? Our numbers this time of year. It's all trades, free agent acquisitions, potential stuff. Like, think about all of the stuff that ESPN dined on just with the Celtics, with the Jaylen Brown, Derek White stuff. They got days and shows of content out of just that piece.
You can't disagree with any of that, but is it good for a fan? Is it, do you, like, you're a fan, you're a basketball fan, you're a Celtics fan. Are you grateful for this new CBA breaking up contending teams just because of the salary implications when in theory, and I won't make this specific to Boston, if you are a team that has an ownership group that is willing to spend and willing to pay for a contender and wants to keep on winning, do you like this CBA preventing that from even being possible?
So little bit, well, not a little. There's a lot to kind of unpack there. I think to Evan's point, I always say sometimes I wonder how many NBA fans actually like basketball, but I know they love trades. I know they love trades and free agency and all that. Like it's the idea, right? I mean, I fully own my job exists because of this stuff. Like that's what I spend the vast majority of my time doing. And so for me, it's great. Make it even more complicated. Awesome. Then I'll, be even more in demand. But I think for fans of the NBA as a whole, I think this CBA is working as intended, and I think it is a good thing. For fans of specific teams, it's probably not as good. And for fans of specific teams in certain times, it's definitely not good. So, how I explain this, and I said this the other day, because we were like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right. I don't remember how many Celtics fans or Bucks fans were complaining a year ago, 2 years ago, when the Warriors and Clippers were dismantling their teams because they had to, because they were so expensive and so far over the second apron. I don't remember hearing a lot of people being like, oh man, that sucks for them. Yeah, it sucks when it hits for you. I think for like the Clippers, for example, Steve Ballmer could pay whatever he wants because in the time it took me to say that, he's made enough money to pay whatever financial penalty the league throws at him. And that was where the NBA was as a collection of 30 teams was, hey, we can't let these handful of teams continue to just blow through because we haven't found the limit, right? It's like Mean Girls. The limit does not exist. They don't know what number they needed to put on them where finally one of those owners would have said, well, hold on, too much. Now we have to shed some guys because we hadn't hit it yet. Those teams just kept getting more and more and more expensive. I think the NBA collectively as a group too read with some of the team sales, which I think have been more than they ever could have dreamed of, but they knew we're going to have these multi-billionaire owners or ownership groups coming in. They're not going to be scared off by simply financial penalties. You had to do something that made building a roster far more difficult. People are angry because it was out there. I was one of the people who put it out there. The Celtics saved like 200 million actual dollars.
More.
Their moves today. Yeah, more if you go all the way there. But it's like that's just to round it, 200 million between salaries, tax penalties, and all that. But that's not why they did this. They did this because they were stuck where the Phoenix Suns are of can't really make trades unless you take back less money, can't aggregate guys together. You can re-sign your own guys, but that's only going to push you further into the apron, and you can only sign your draft picks. That's it. There's nothing else you can do if you're a second apron team. You can no longer, well, let me kind of finagle this, and we'll bring this guy in for these three guys. That's not allowed anymore when you live there. They had to get to a position where, all right, we can start to retool this roster a little because Tatum's out for the year. Porzingis is not reliable. Drew Holiday is an older player. They needed to be in a spot where, all right, we have to start setting ourselves up to be able to live in a new world when maybe we don't have all these guys for 70 games a year.
Yeah, and just to build on that, and you can tell me if any of this is wrong, but I saw this online just to really, because this is one of the things, Keith, that if it drives me nuts, it must put you in a place where like you're in a rubber room bouncing off of the walls. The amount of people who work in media, not necessarily basketball reporters, but people who work in media that have been out there on social media watching, Boston deal away Holiday, salary dump Porzingis, all of it, and just say, boy, that new ownership group is cheap. Boy, I can't believe Boston with the East wide the hell open. Boston is just cheaping out. Why can't we get a group that is willing to spend on this team? That they either don't understand the second apron penalties or don't care to understand it. It's that simple, because this team building, the team building preventions that exist. And you mentioned a couple of them. Just to run down this list. First round picks 7 years out cannot be traded. Teams will no longer be able to use the taxpayer mid-level exception, vet minimums only. If a team remains in the second apron 3 out of 5 seasons, their first round pick will automatically move to the end of the round. Outgoing salaries cannot be aggregated or combined in trades. Cannot acquire a player in return for an outgoing sign and trade. Teams cannot use trade exceptions created from a prior year, and teams can no longer use cash in trades. Just some of the restrictions that it is crippling to build a team out for years to come. It is absolutely crippling, this CBA as it exists right now. It's disgusting. I don't like it. I don't support it. I think it's awful. But it also is what it is. Like, it exists. We could all sit here and bitch about it or acknowledge that this is a real thing and don't call anybody cheap. In fact, dare I say, call Brad, Mike, all these other guys smart for recognizing, okay, we have an issue, a significant issue, a team that is not in position to contend in some ways. And this is not a good thing. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Those of you out there watching or listening, don't get all uppity in the comments about this. Jason Tatum's injury is a bad thing, but the timing of it, if it had to happen, is a gift. It's a gift because it was going to be a lost year next year without Tatum. And those trades, if you had Tatum, might very well have been made anyway. They wouldn't necessarily have just, gone out to the Knicks in the second round, healthy Tatum, and let's just go run it back because we know what this group is capable of because of all the crap that I just read you. We've talked about this for months, Ev. Moves were coming regardless. And the fact that you don't have Tatum, even in a wide open East, at least gives you the ability to take a breath mentally and reset and retool, restructure, reset. I think I said reset twice. All of these different things, and look at it and just say, this is an opportunity for us to step back for a moment, recognize that even if we somehow got through the East because it's weak and got to the NBA Finals, we're probably going to get pummeled by whoever it is from the West. So we're not going to win anyway. How do we make ourselves a contender in the 26-27 season? And I just think all of that coupled with the fact that, honestly, and we're removing Tatum from this, let's say, like post-Tatum injury, the roster was what it was a week ago versus it is what it is right now, which is far from finalized. They're still going to be adding bigs. George Niang may not even be on the roster. He's certainly not starting for this team. And Amari Williams is not starting for this team. There are going to be changes that are made in the front court. They're not wildly off in terms of overall, talent, maybe depth, but talent from even where they were with, as you said, an unreliable Porzingis and an aging Holiday. Not wildly off. What, 5 wins? Like, I don't think you're not all of a sudden a lottery team. You're still a playoff team. You're not a play-in team. You're a playoff team. Maybe you're not top 4, maybe you're top 6, but that's what we're talking about right now. So I don't know. I think given in the spirit of it is what it is, as I said before, it's really not a terrible thing, and maybe even is a good thing what the front office is facing right now.
I'm with you. It was coming. Like, there's no other way for me to put it other than that. Like I think we're really in a spot where it was coming and now it's here. And like you said, like it or not, you have to deal with it. It is what it is. When I used to have a team that I was the manager of, I would always tell them, hey guys, if you need to vent and complain about some task we were given, that's fine. That's part of my job as your manager is to let you do that, but we're still going to have to do it. So we can either do that or we can just go do it anyway, right? It's like when my dad would say, hey, go rake the lawn, and I'd complain about it for a half hour, and they'd be like, now go rake the lawn. Like, it doesn't matter.
Could have been done
right?
by now.
Yeah, it still needs done. So we're just in a spot where this was coming anyway. The one that I think people are missing is that frozen pick and the pick dropping to the end of the first round. So already the Celtics can't trade their 2032 pick. They had been in again, they would have risked it falling to the end of the first round. Now they can begin the process. I call it the thawing process, where you start to thaw that pick out. Because if you're out 3 or 4 years before it's frozen, the pick is thawed out and you can go. So they've already started the process on that, and we'll see where it goes. And I think that's really important. I think doing that, resetting the books, then I know we're probably going to get into it in a minute here. They actually did all right in these trades too. These were not, and I have specific thoughts about the trades that we can get into, but it wasn't just straight up, hey, Brooklyn, will you eat this contract? And here's 2 first-round picks to do it, which it could have been. That could have been the way this played out. But instead, they did actually really well in these trades.
All right, why don't we take a quick break? I will ramble a little less. We'll tell you about our good friends over at PrizePicks.
PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. And with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everybody. Just pick more or less. It's real simple, real easy on 2 players, at least 2 players, for a shot to win up 2,000 times your cash. Because 2,000x your cash. It's really hard to find numbers like that. It's a big number. You could, I don't know, go on vacation for 2,000 times your cash, run your game all season long on PrizePicks. PrizePicks has been the flex play, which means, look, if I didn't have flex play, I'd probably be down way too much money to talk about. However, with flex play, I can double my money even if all 3 of my picks don't hit. And that's what I've been telling you guys forever on this show. If you've been listening to the show, you've been watching the show, first off, thank you very much. But you know I live for the flex play. Dude, I was able to literally bankroll hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars thanks to PrizePicks and flex play. Took some out, treated myself to a nice dinner. Thank you very much. The NBA Finals, very, very nice. But today we're going to focus on the golf world. The Rocket Classic is this weekend. And recording this, we don't have all of the second round done yet. So we're going to use that in mind. But obviously, you know, the 3rd round, 4th round at the Rocket Classic this weekend is all available for you all week long. Again, going into Friday, Minwoo Lee, he tore it up first round. Thursday, shot a 63, less than 68 for his second round is what I'm going with. Colin Morikawa, one of the best in the world. I went more than 67.5 on his score for round 2. Over, so it's got to be 68 or more. Didn't have a great round in round 1. We'll see how that goes for round 2. Then Wyndham Clark. I just love Wyndham Clark. I'm a big fan. Shot a 66 his first round. I am going less than 68 for his second round. Again, keep up with me and the rest of the people, the PrizePicks. Use that flex play. If I played that lineup, flex play would give me 2.75x if I hit all 3. If I came in first place in the grouping, I would get 3x. Or if I hit 1 out of 2, I get 1x, which is, hey, I still get double my money if I win. You know, I only have to get 2 right. It's the best. And getting your money cannot be any easier. In a little as 15 minutes, just watch all the money roll into your account. PrizePicks uses Venmo. Super easy, simple, painless. That's what we love here at CLNS and here on Celtics Beat. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
All right, back here with Keith, and look, he just teased it. I think it's a good place to go because, again, there are a lot of overarching thoughts that we have been providing so far. Let's dig into the trades, and let's start with the Holiday one, who just Holiday and Porzingis in general, like, thank you, obviously, for your contributions over the last couple of years. You know, Banner 18 doesn't come without you guys. I know people feel more strongly about the Holiday side of that than the Porzingis side of that, but I think both were incredibly impactful in their time in Boston. Holiday more so because of what he brought defensively. And again, he was a gamer, especially come the playoffs. You knew that he was going to just level up. And that's what veterans, that's what multiple time champions do. And accepting his role and coming off the bench and, you know, the personal statistics plummeting from where they were in the past. I couldn't think more highly of Drew Holiday, which only puts me in the company of literally everybody around the NBA. Now, all of that said, Keith, I think that I even before he was dealt, I've been texting with Evan, with other friends of ours like crazy about how hey, I think it's time to move on from Holiday. He's already 35. He's already showing signs of decline. I think that contract is going to age incredibly poorly. If you can get out from under it, even if you don't get something in return, if you don't have to attach value to him, that's a win. Get out of it financially. And they did one better as far as I'm concerned. I think I'm in the minority in feeling this way based on social media. There are not a lot of people out there that think very highly of Anthony Simons. I would love to see Simons on the Celtics this coming year, even if it's the 1 year and then he's gone. They don't give him a new contract, whatever it is. This is a guy who over the last few years is a 20-point per game scorer, a elite volume 3-point shooter, about 8 per game. And is he an ideal, like Jaylen Brown's your 1A and Simons is your 1B or your 2? No, probably not. Steve Bulpett spoke with an executive, wrote about how in an ideal world, Anthony Simons is, on a contending team, a 6th man. That's fine. But you don't have Jason Tatum anymore. Not right now. And you need points to come from somewhere. And you weren't getting that from Holiday. You weren't getting it reliably from Porzingis. You should get it from Brown. You should get it from White. Even to a degree, you should get it from Pritchard. I think Simons is a guy who can come in and give you in the vicinity of 20 a game. And I'm excited to watch him.
I'm with you. Anthony Simons can shoot and score. And without Jason Tatum, the Celtics need people who can shoot and score. They have also, Brad Stevens talked about it. I think Mike Zarin touched on it. It had been talked about kind of in the lead up to the offseason. They're going to play faster next year. They're just going to have to push pace a little bit more. Simons really fits that perfectly. And where things went a little wonky for him the last couple years was he was thrust into much more of a primary on-ball role in Portland. If you go back a couple years ago when he was playing off of Damian Lillard and off of a couple other guys, he was like their third option. Really good efficiency. Numbers were still really good. And everybody was like, man, this kid can really score. He's not even in the same universe of defensive ability as Drew Holiday. But guess what? You weren't getting somebody like that. And again, you need points. You have to replace Jason Tatum's points somehow. And this is, as much as we joke and laugh about, and I love the movie Moneyball, you can't throw it on the board and say, guys, stop trying to replace Giambi. Like, yes, it's true to an extent, but like you still need to score in excess of 100 points to win games in the NBA. And almost 30 points a night is now gone for a year. Anthony Simons may not get to 30, but he's going to get you 20 something, I think, in this group. And he's going to be able to do it playing off of White, playing off of Brown. He's going to be the third guy. And just if anybody's out there is like, man, I don't like, hopefully this team won't shoot as many 3-pointers. Oh, you better find a new team, because I think they're going to shoot even more 3-pointers than they did last year, because that's what Simons does. We'll get into George Niang. That's his best skill, is his 3-point shooting. And I think it's going to be bombs away even more, because there's just going to be a much more of an offensive lean to this team next year as they kind of reset and retool.
I like the addition of Simons. I think he's going to be kind of fun. My hope for the Celtics is they don't trade him right away. They kind of see what he can do and how he fits in with this team, and see what they might be able to put stuff around him as well as they try and rebuild this team for 26, 27 and beyond. Can you get into some of the minutia in the value that comes with letting Simons' contract expire versus retaining him long-term and signing him to an extension? Because I'm going to be honest with you, I could explain it, but not nearly as good as you. And we have you here to kind of give us all a really concrete idea of how this stuff works. So what's the value of letting a contract like that expire versus trying to lock him up long-term, and how hard is that to do?
Yeah, and I'll start by saying, because I've seen some people say, all right, so we got off 2 years of Drew Holiday's money beyond this season for an expiring contract. Let's just let Simons expire too, and then we'll use cap space next summer. That's probably not going to be a thing. We don't know what else is coming for the team, but you have well over $130 million, probably closer to 150, locked up in Brown, Tatum, and White. That's just the reality of where the situation is. Tatum and Brown are pushing closer to 60 million. And now, again, I'm not talking about right now. I'm talking about next summer. And then White's up over 30 or pretty close to 30 million. So you're not going to be a cap space team. That's fine. That's not really the plan here anyway. But with Simons, there's two paths, right? You either extend him. If you could come to agreement on a really nice team-friendly deal, Celtics will probably do it. Because then, great, we have a rotation player under contract. If it was $20 million a year, okay, let's go. $25 million a year. I've even tried to explain to people, this came up with Austin Reeves, because people are like, how dare he turn down a contract near $100 million? $100 million, $25 million a year, that's like what 15 was only a few years ago. It's just a reset of, we're still stuck on this. Like max contracts now are $40 million. Like that's where they start at, almost that. So like, it's just a reset of, you have to think in terms of percentage of the cap, and that's how you translate it. So anyway, if you could get him on a team friendly deal, awesome. The other option is you just kind of let it play out a little bit. See what it looks like. Does he fit? Is he good with the team? Does he work out with the rest of the guys? And then you're not locked into money right away. And the other thing is, again, this is really dependent on the team you're talking to. Some teams might like the idea that he's an expiring contract because it might make him easier to flip in another trade this year. Other teams may be like, man, we really wish he was had a couple more years on his deal. That's all the stuff the Celtics are assessing right now. Because as much as I like the idea of Anthony Simons on the team, I'm not running out and buying an Anthony Simons Celtics jersey because I don't even know that he makes it another week and a half on the roster. I think this roster, outside of Tatum, Brown, White, Pritchard, and then like the guys who are on the like lower contracts, the guys who make under $3 million a year, I wouldn't feel confident about anybody that's around, that they're going to definitely be on the roster, because I think they're just in that kind of churn phase of, all right, we made the one trade, but that, like Adam said, we're not done here. There's more to come. And then I think, Simons could be somebody where it turns into, oh yeah, hey, this actually works better. What this kind of reminds me of is, do you remember Danny Ainge's first year after trading Pierce and Garnett and those guys? It was like for a 3-week period, it was like guys needed name tags because it was like a revolving door. I think he made 4 trades in 1 week, including like Brandon Wright showed up, played like 1 game for the Celtics, got traded. Jameer Nelson got in 1 game, got traded. Like that's, I'm
Wasn't
not saying
Austin
it's going to
Rivers
be
part of that too?
Yeah, Austin Rivers. Well, and then they held him hostage because Doc wanted him, and they're like, "You're going to give us a pick if you actually want to get him." That, I'm not saying it's going to be that drastic in those extremes, but it's not going to surprise me if some of these guys are moved on in subsequent deals, because I think it's all about, hey, we're just trying to retool this roster and figure it out. But as it stands, if it is Simons, that's good. I know that's a very long answer here. Very simple question about what happens with his contract, but that's kind of where these things lay out right now.
Before we get back to kind of some of the, I want to keep that conversation going, but let's dovetail away from it for just a second and talk about the Porzingis deal, which again was more of a salary dump, goes to Atlanta. It's a good, opportunity for change of scenery and all of this for Porzingis, who, look, I think it's not his fault. I want to present that. I think he was a fan favorite, obviously always smiling. I think he is one of those guys that is truly like, Boston will always be in my heart, and he means it. He's, and that part of that comes with winning a championship too. Like you're forever. He could have very easily, and Evan and I, how many times have we said this in recent weeks? Like, thank God they got the one, man. Like, thank God they got that one, because Porzingis could have very easily been another one of those guys who comes in. He's just part of the revolving door of Celtics that are here for a couple of years and he's gone. You kind of forget about, oh yeah, he played for Boston. No, he's going to be remembered because, again, he won a title and he was an impactful part of that championship team, especially there in that return from injury in game 1 against the Mavs and all of that in the finals. But I think at the same time, fans had kind of grown tired of the inconsistency of when is he going to be available, and when he is, how is he going to play? And especially, and again, not his fault. I feel for him when I say this, but the like bubonic plague or whatever the hell he was dealing with, this respiratory issue that torpedoed much of all of last season for him on a personal level, and obviously hurt them come the playoffs as well, because a lot of people front of the line thought he was going to be impactful against the Knicks, and instead he was awful. He hurt them. He was a net negative. And so, I think people were ready to move on. So, you move him to Atlanta, and he's going to play this, for overseas and all of that this upcoming off season before the season rolls around. Like, good luck to you, man. I'm glad that I don't even have to think about it anymore. But you bring back George Niang, who, again, I don't believe that he is here when the season starts. And, you an extra second rounder because you've flipped one on either side, but you get him off the books as the expiring deal that he was. I think that it was just, unfortunately for Porzingis, it was just time. So now you got to look beyond it, but it creates the larger issue of you're small. Like you've got a problem in terms of bigs, especially with the Horford and Kornet situation. So was there any part of you that even believed that Porzingis was going to be on this roster when the season began, or was him being dealt a foregone conclusion?
I was more, let me think of a better way to phrase this. I thought there was a better chance Drew Holiday stayed on the roster than Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis, to me, because of the fact that he's on an expiring contract, there were any number of teams that might have said, all right, we can do that, right? We'll do that trade because it makes sense for us, because maybe their goal is cap space in the next year or whatever it may be. That one was very easy to me. That was the one I was more likely felt like could have been a straight salary dump, which this was like 90% of a straight salary dump, because you did take some back. I also let me pause there to say, I think if these transaction news had broken reverse order, people would feel a lot better about the whole sequence, because they'd be like, all right, we didn't like the Porzingis trade, but we got a guy who could kind of play in Simons. All right, it all worked out okay. And we got 2 second-round picks, because why that I still am confused why that happened. But the order it came in was like, okay, I feel pretty good about this Holiday Simons trade. Then it was like, oh man, we only got off $22.5 million, and we have to take George Niang, and now people act like that thing where he grabbed Jaylen Brown's leg in the playoffs a few years ago when he was on Philly. People act like he took the steel chair to the back of his head and clubbed him, and they're like, get this bum off my team. He hates everybody, and he's like public enemy number one, which is just weird. But I think Porzingis, yeah, he was always going to be gone, because you have the component of you saved a ton of money towards the apron in this. That's really the move that got you out of the second apron. He had the expiring contract, and like you said, you couldn't rely on him. If he was coming off a 65-game season and a decent playoff run, even had they lost, you might start being like, all right, well, if Horford and Kornet are question marks, all right, let's keep him, and maybe we move somebody else, right? And we figure it out another way. But the reality is he wasn't. You just couldn't trust when he was going to play. So to me, it's, as you're resetting, you had to make a move like this.
Before we keep going, just a quick reminder, everybody that's listening to us, whether it's on iTunes, on Spotify, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on either of those platforms or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching us on YouTube, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the Celtics All Access channel as a part of CLNS Media. That's where you're going to find us all the time. That's where you can make fun of me, make fun of Adam, however you want to do it. We applaud all of you. We appreciate.
Don't make fun of the guests.
Well, yeah, leave the guests alone. The guests.
Yeah, we want the guests to keep coming back. Make fun.
Leave it
Don't
to
make
me
fun
now.
of the guests.
And you can make fun of me too. I have thick skin. That's all I hear all day.
Got to work in this industry. But just to keep go again, subscribe wherever you get your podcast, but especially on our YouTube channel. Again, Celtics All Access. Just to keep us going. The craziest part about the Porzingis deal is the fact they got Brooklyn involved with this, so that they didn't have to take a bad salary back. Like Boston, by doing it the way they did it, and shout out Brooklyn for helping out with this. They got Terrence Mann in this whole thing, and that worked out. But the way they did it ends up like they get to keep Sam Hauser, and they grab George Niang to maybe do something else and make another trade in a different way. Like that's the one thing to Keith's point. Like if they put it in reverse order, maybe people would like it more. I was floored that they didn't have to bring back any crazy salary money or like in my case, I thought, they're going to attach a first-round pick or 2 seconds, whatever, to get off that Porzingis contract. They didn't do any of that. That's amazing. That's great work by Zarin and Brad and the rest of the crew that's in that front office. Because, look, I actually like George Niang. I know he might have a bad rap with some people. First off, he is a true masshole. Like, did you guys see the clip of him talking about the first time he played against Ben Simmons after they played together in Philadelphia and how much he wanted to kill him? I love guys like that. I love that.
He's a real Boston kid. Like, I think people like miss that, right? And when I say a Boston kid, right, we all say we're from Boston because half the rest of the country doesn't know where all these cities and towns are, and they definitely can't pronounce any of them right. So it doesn't, you just say Boston and move on. I do think, too, to your point, Evan, which was a really good one, is there's a world where Niang's the one who goes to Brooklyn and Terrence Mann's the one who comes to Boston. They don't save as much money. And people might be like, man, I kind of like Terrence Mann, but the goal here was not to get a player you really like. The goal was save money, get us under the apron, get us in a better position financially and flexibility-wise to do that. Now I sound like Brad Stevens. I'm using all of his same buzzwords, but that's really what the goal was here. And because now they're under the second apron, you could even make a trade where you aggregate together Niang and Simons down the line and trade them off in another deal. These deals aren't even official yet. There's a chance this gets rolled into one big multi-team transaction, and then you can make other trades within that too. But we'll caution this. Seeing a bunch of people who are on the positive side are like, hey, and the Celtics create this massive trade exception. Yes, they absolutely did. But here's the challenge. They didn't create this $22 million trade exception to go get a $20 million player and go right back over the second apron. That's not what happened here. It's great to have it. It's a decent tool. We've actually seen the Celtics be one of the few teams to use trade exceptions to their benefit, going back to when they chained together the Gordon Hayward one with multiple other moves. So it's great to have it. It's awesome they created it if this is the end result of the trade and it goes down as reported without being expanded or other stuff's pulled in. But I just want to caution people. They didn't do all this to say, you know what, but now let's go right back over. Because if they were going to do that, they would have just kept the guys they already had and knew and rolled forward with that. So just, it's nice to be. But yeah, they didn't give up any first-round draft capital to get off any of these contracts. They got back guys. And Niang is somebody who, I'm not saying they return him. Great return for him. Mm-hmm. But if there's a team that finds themselves a week from now, free agency's kind of slowed down, like, man, we need a backup 4 who can kind of shoot. Celtics might be like, hey, we got one. You want him? Like, let's go. And that's, maybe that's a second round pick down the line, but sure, why not? For a guy who was basically, hey, Brooklyn, it had Brooklyn at it, because I've seen that too. Why didn't Brooklyn just take both guys? Because then you're probably having to send a first round pick. Because you're saying, hey, will you eat 23.5, almost $24 million, for us? Like, that's why they got out of it with, here's only a second round pick, because it was only $15 million this year for Mann.
Completely separate issues. Well, maybe the same issue for Boston. Completely separate situations, but let's lump them in together. Because, again, I can't say this enough. Moves are still going to be made, so this roster is far from finalized. But at the same token, if you like to, play the whole, well, what do we look like now game, that's fine too. We're sitting here today, late June, and right now, there's a world where George Niang and I don't know, Keita would be starting both for this team because you are so thin in the front court. Al Horford is a free agent. Luke Kornet is a free agent. You could look at Horford, and to me, this comes down to 3 things, basically. Retirement, which I don't believe he wants to do. Stay in Boston for the sake of comfort, but a hefty team discount. Or, you're running out of time, man. Like, try and latch on with another contender, at whatever veteran deal you get. Maybe you could even make more money even still leaving Boston, going to Denver or Oklahoma City, or I don't know, like whatever. I don't know everyone's salary cap situation, but
God forbid the Lakers.
God forbid. But like,
that happens. I'm just going to be mad.
but a spot that would make sense for him and certainly for them. So Horford could go somewhere else and try and win that next championship. Obviously, he's got the one, but he could try and get another championship before his time is up. And he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but doesn't help or it doesn't hurt to, cement the case further. So for Horford, it's again, come back to Boston, but you're waiting out the Tatum injury. And, so it's probably a 2-year deal, but you're making, I don't know, what, 10 million over those 2 years or whatever the number is versus potentially making 30 million going somewhere else over 2 years. And then there's Kornet, who, look, I've kind of already resigned myself, I believe, to the fact that he's gone, because I think he's going to, maybe I'm wrong about this, and I want your thoughts on the financial component especially, but I just feel like he's going to get priced out of Boston. I think he loves Boston. I think he'd love to return to Boston. And I think he would take on a larger role, clearly, with the Celtics. He'd be starting for this team. But there are other very good teams out there that have more money and will be tempted to pay him more, at the very least offer him more, because of the elevated profile that he has earned over his last couple of years in Boston. He is a good player for what he does. And so I think, for all the people out there that are like, one or both will be back, I think it's very realistic both these guys are gone. So before we get to the what happens after that, God forbid, what do you think, Keith? How does this play out with these two guys?
Yeah, so as we look at it right now, the Celtics are about $4.5 million under the second apron. That's great, but let's just say Kornet and Horford combined were $10 million next year, you're right back over. Right now, you're right back over the second apron. Now, there's other things you could do, and that's where the other things come in. Like, I know we haven't talked about it yet, but I personally think there's a good chance Sam Hauser gets moved.
Yeah.
His contract is extremely fair for any team for what he does. But for the Celtics, a guy who's like basically a designated shooter, that's a luxury for a team that's not a contender. On a contender, that's a skill set you can pay for, and they did, and you should. But it's like having a really good closer on a bad baseball team. What's kind of the point? It doesn't really matter that much, right? Like doesn't change things enough that we should be paying for that. So I think there's a chance he moves. His contract also fits in anybody's mid-level exception that can get him. So anybody who's not dealing with apron issues, super easy to get Sam Hauser and off they go. So if you made a move like that, now you've freed up enough space to keep at least one of Horford or Kornet, fill out the roster. Some people are starting to look at me like, man, they're close enough to getting out of the tax altogether. Sure, they are. That's going to mean Hauser, Niang, Simons, probably 2 of that 3 are moved on from, or some major move we're not expecting, and I quite frankly don't think is coming, like with a Brown or a White trade. So you're probably still operating as a tax team, maybe over the first apron, but the goal is to get under the second apron, and that's going to be a spot where, in order to keep Horford or Kornet, you're going to have to see some other subsequent move come, because they're not just coming back for minimum contracts. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Kornet's already done that. This is his first chance to really, and let's face it, at his age, probably only chance to get a contract that's going to pay him anything near $10 million a year. That may be a little high, but anything even in that range, anything more than $5 or $6 million. I don't know that he'll have another really good chance like this. So I'm not going to blame him at all if he cashes in. And like you said, if Horford is like, man, I love it in Boston and I'll always be around, but I really want to win one more time. I don't want to do this gap year. Yeah, then I'm not going to blame him either if he wants to go somewhere else. I mean, I'm just not the Lakers for either guy. They just don't do that. That would be, they're going to look gross in purple anyway. Like, don't do it.
I think it's like kind of a little more likely that Kornet's back than Horford, only because like we've been talking about, this is a reset year. The year they're really trying to contend is 26-27. Is Al Horford going to hang around another year after this to play with? I mean, look, I love Al. Like there's just we all know this. Everybody in this podcast loves Al Horford, but I just don't see. I mean, look, he's already gone this far. He might be able to buck father time a few more years, but like he is just getting way up there. And if the plan is really 26-27, I just have a hard time thinking that what's Al going to be 39, 40 by the time they get there. I have a hard time seeing, maybe I'm crazy coughing, but I have a hard time seeing Al Horford being part of the 26-27 Celtics, buddy.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. I think Al's probably gone. I think both are probably gone. And I agree with what Keith said, which is, you could bring one or both of these guys back. You get back over the second apron, you get back under by figuring out another way. I'm endorse the. It's not that I'm supporting it, but I just, from the start, I have been expecting Sam Hauser to be gone. So I think Hauser is gone. And I already said I think Niang is gone. So there you go. That's X number of $1 million between those two guys. Gets you right back down, obviously, if you do bring one or both of those other bigs back. But let's just say that neither one returns. Where do you think another big is coming from? An experienced big that you actually are comfortable with, not like this patchwork situation. Is it coming in? Is there a free agent possibility that's realistic given their limitations? Or do you think that in the same way that nobody saw Anthony Simons coming here for Drew Holiday, do we see Hauser and or Niang or Simons or whoever it is spun off elsewhere and a quality big comes back?
That would have to be the way, because signing wise, again, yeah, I sound like a broken record, but they can get under the apron just to go back over it. So they're not going to be using exceptions. They're not going to put themselves in a position to be in that world. So you're talking minimum contracts, right? You're talking a minimum if you're signing a free agent. Now there'll be guys available. There always are. But yeah, you could maybe look at Phoenix, who now is overloaded in centers, and be like, hey, can we try to make something work? We send you George Niang, for Nick Richards. Like, it'd be complicated, but could you do something like that? And then Nick Richards, that's a plug-in, get-by guy, right? And you're like, all right, for a year, we're good. We'll get by with that. Or is it a bigger trade? Somebody who makes around what Hauser makes. Could you do that? That's the flexibility now of versus just saying, well, all right, we're over the second apron and Horford left and Kornet left, and now it's definitely has to be a minimum. Now you have some options that you didn't have before this. So they're in a weird spot. I'm gonna split the difference and say I think one of the two of them is back. I think one of Horford or Kornet is back. I think they probably already have a really good idea what it's going to take to do that, and there may already be. Because remember, you can negotiate with your own free agents now. They may already have it in place, and it's just going to be, hey, contingent upon the next deal. We do this, and we'll see. And that's why free agency opens Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern on the 30th. But it's going to be a couple busy days here over the weekend, because I think we may see another deal or two agreed to by the Celtics.
Keith, I know we're running short on time. Before we let you go, how'd Boston do in the draft? Are you as enamored with Hugo Gonzalez as our guy Evan is here? Who, if you've been paying attention to Ev on Twitter, he's obsessed already.
Yeah, I took a little bit of a beating because I said I was a little lower on the pick. It's just there's so much unknown, and that's okay. That's fine. I thought they might have gone with like Liam McNeely, who I really liked quite a bit. I thought they might have gone with the center, which might have kind of alleviated some of these concerns we just talked about. That said, there is a ton of upside. This kid's super young. He's played at a high level since he was like 14 years old against grown men. So I'm kind of excited about that. The profile is good. His body looks good as far as size and physicality. So I'm open-minded to it. I just think people need to be a little patient because it may take a little while for him to transition. And he is extremely young. Like it's going to take a little bit, with that. But yeah, I was okay with it. And then I thought they did pretty good with those. One, the package they got was great to get 4 seconds for 1 second in that trade with Orlando. And then to get Amari Williams and Max Shulga, not bad. I think they did all right with those two guys kind of coming in on I think Zarin said last night they'll likely be on 2 ways. So okay, sure, start out that way. And if they're better than that, we've seen the Celtics are very willing to, all right, Yell played a two-way. Let's get you on the standard roster now. They did it with Hauser. They did it with Kada. JD Davison, kind of, sort of. That was more of a reward for thanks for everything you've done. But they're very open to moving guys up from a two-way contract if they do what they have to do, either with them or in Maine with the G League Celtics.
Keith, we will let you go. Evan and I will continue on just a little bit longer because it has been such a chaotic week. But again, Keith Smith, you get him on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA from Spotrac, from the Front Office Show with Trevor Lane. Check that out. And there's no rest for the weary. Keith is going to continue to be very busy in the days to come. Busy weekend, potential moves ahead, and obviously with the start of free agency come Monday. Celtics not presumably going to be heavily involved there, but could be some moves around it that make things more interesting for Boston. But some of those huge dominoes have obviously started to fall already. So, Keith, thank you so much. We'll bug you again as we get closer to the season.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So, Ev, I wanted to – I've been sprinkling a lot of my thoughts in throughout this show, obviously, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to expand a little bit more on just – again, where we are, where we've been, where we are. The draft, I know you've had plenty of tweets and reflections on the three guys that Boston has added, but where I think we should probably just begin for a moment, just to echo what we've been saying for shows and shows and shows, is goodness gracious, at least they got the one. In this era of Adam Silver parity, where there have been 9 championships in the last dozen years since he took over, and 7 straight different ones. And who knows what dynasty is to come for Oklahoma City or isn't, because as Boston learned, and every other team has learned, there are no guarantees you get back, no matter how many people think you're going to get back. At least they got the one. We can be thankful to Holiday and to Porzingis and everyone else that was a part of Banner 18.
Yeah, that's you got to start there, because there's just, you have no clue how this is going to go. And people that are penciling Oklahoma City, people are saying the same thing with the Celtics last year. If there's a team that's going to repeat, it's going to be the Celtics team. Or if there's a team that's going to repeat, it's going to be something. I'm not saying Thunder aren't set up for it. I'm not saying that. I think they're
Boston.
They're an awesome basketball team. They're also very fortunate that Tyrese Halliburton, his Achilles exploded in the first 7 minutes of the game, because could have been a different outcome. Could have. Not sure. Not totally positive. It could have been different. To assume that you're getting back, especially with how loaded the West is, can't assume that. Ant's getting better. You're going to have Luka in L.A. and whatever the hell they're going to do. You have Wemby in San Antonio and whatever they're going to do. Oh, yeah, meanwhile, Nikola Jokic is over there. You have Kevin Durant in Houston. The West is a bloodbath. So, good luck to the Thunder. Maybe they're the first team to pull it off. Maybe not. We'll see. But they got the one. And now nothing you can do. They got a Larry. Nothing you can do. Celtics got the one they needed to get. Totally fine. They reset. You know what's funny, though? I was thinking about this. You could close the book, I think, on a couple of things. And it being one, how you go on walks with your dog and think about everything in the world. And one of the things I was thinking about my most recent walk with my dog was, man, I think I can only guarantee you now that 0, 7, and 42 are going up in the rafters. And there's a real outside shot that 9 for Derek White gets up there. But I thought, if they went back to back,
42 is a guarantee.
42. You don't think Al Horford's going to the rafters? I absolutely think Al Horford.
I don't think that's a lock.
I think it's a lock. Look at Ray Allen got up there.
No, he didn't.
He wasn't here that long.
Ray's not up there.
Either. What's up?
Ray's not up there.
He's going to be up there, dude.
But he's not up there.
He's going to be up there. For sure.
Well, you believe he's going to be up there, and Wick has alluded to putting him up there, but he's not up there. There's no announcement for him to be up there.
He's going up there. Trust me. He's going to get up there.
I mean, he shouldn't be up there, but that's beside the point.
If he's getting up there, Horford's getting up there.
Well, fine. I agree with that, but I don't think either of them should be up there.
I don't know. Horford's been around for a while. He's second iteration. He's
been around that long. I mean, the guy. It's I don't know. What I mean.
Hold on a minute.
Now you're
hold on.
I understand the argument for every star player to run through Boston. Let's put him in the rafters. But now, Horford. Don't get me wrong. I know he helped change the conversation. The first legitimate big money free agent signing Boston ever had. No one will ever take that away from him. And obviously, that was quickly, eclipsed by Gordon Hayward and Kemba Walker and guys like. But Horford is, for all that he does behind the scenes as a leader and an unbelievable teammate and all of this stuff, he on the court, man, he's as role player as they come. He is a role player. Now he's a very good role player, but he's a role player. And like, I can't believe you even put me in a position where I have to dump on Al Horford. Like he's a first ballot Hall of Famer for his NBA and his college basketball contributions. I don't think 42 belongs in the rafters.
I think he's going up. I really do. I think he's got a real good shot at it. And I think that White could easily also make it from this particular crew, because I think White's obviously going to be around for a while. I think when you look at
what to be around longer than he's been here.
Yeah,
White's not close as far. We can't. Not every guy that wins a title goes in the rafters.
I know, but like some of the important guys to be up there. I think Al, 7 years of what he gave to this team, I think is really important. But I'll say, like, you have Derek White, you have Jaylen Brown, you have Jason Tatum and Pritchard, because Brad the other day mentioned their core is those four guys, which I felt the Pritchard inclusion I thought was very interesting. Did that? I thought, given his salary,
he's the reigning sixth man of the year. I mean, he's everyone knows what he brings this team, and he's going to have to take on a larger role absent Tatum.
No question. But you look at he's a reigning sixth man of the year with a very affordable contract and easy to move. It's not like in the same vein of Sam Hauser. Like Sam Hauser's easy contract. He's a walking 40% 3-point shooter on a very affordable contract. I mean, you're thinking about what you could get back for him. I thought the same thing with Peyton Pritchard. I didn't think
but
outside of the big three guys, I didn't think anybody.
The same player. They're not the same player, but Hauser and Shireman are more interchangeable.
Sure.
Than like you don't have a Pritchard replacement.
But I don't have one right now. But it doesn't mean I couldn't go out and get one. Doesn't mean I can't find a guard somewhere that could replace some of what Pritchard does. Sure. I was just a little shocked at the fact that Brad went out of his way to include Pritchard in that group. And I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't worthy. I think you, amongst everybody, has been Peyton Pritchard's going to play more. He's going to average more points. He's going to have his best year. And you were rewarded with the sixth man of the year award for Peyton Pritchard. You were right on that. I will tell you.
Thank you.
But like you could find somebody that does what he does. But Brad went out of his way to say Pritchard's part of our crew. And I'm not saying that's bad. I think Pritchard, if like we talked about with Keith, they want to play faster. I think he's like the captain of that ship. Like, how many times have you seen Pritchard ahead of the pack trying to push pace after a make from the other team? I think they're trying. They looked at. I keep going back, and I texted this to you. I texted this to our buddy Seth as well.
Mm-hmm.
I keep going back to that quote that Zach Lowe had from a front office executive during the NBA Finals, and I couldn't quite find the exact quote. I wasn't sure if he tweeted it or he said it on Bill's podcast or his own podcast. But I do remember this particular quote happening about how the pace of the finals, how hard they played for, how long they played for, and in just a pace of up and down, back and forth. We know you and I, big fans of Indiana, we know how they play. Their pace is insane. It's so hard to keep up. Maybe that's the next iteration of where we're headed with basketball in the future is pace is going to go up. You're going to need guys that can play hard minutes, but a lot of minutes. Payne Pritchard can absolutely do that. As we all kind of talked about, Hugo Gonzalez and Amari Williams are probably going to fit into that equation a little bit more of guys. Like, I watched Amari Williams last night start the fast break off a rebound and then pass to a guy cutting to the basket, and you're like, holy shit, this guy's 7 feet tall. This is amazing. I do think that Pritchard fits into that particular mold, maybe better than anybody else on their roster, whether it's Tatum, Brown, or White, or anybody.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see, how many of these guys actually make the team and play. And like we talk about depth and how many guys deep a team will go, and Joe certainly likes to use his bench to a certain degree, but are we going to see, Hugo's expected to come over, but is he going to be here? Is he going to be in Maine? He's going to be, potentially splitting his time. Same for the other guys that were taken in the second round. To what degree are they going to play? I mean, there's a bigger maybe I'm wrong about this. I think as it exists right now, though, there's a clearer pathway for Williams than there is for anybody else, simply because they're desperate for bigs. I don't think this other guy, Shulga, is going to be on the team. We'll see any minutes for the Celtics this year. And what does it mean for Jordan Walsh and J.D. Davison and these other guys? Like, how much are they going to play? Does Shireman take on a significantly larger role? And again, I would be inclined to say yes if we find out that Hauser's gone, but that is contingent upon that. It's just what is this? It's why I've said 15 times during the show, I just think this roster is so far from finalized, Ev. I think there are so many different, but what I want to know is there a sort of a mind-blowing move? And that's not fair. Mind-blowing would be Brown or White dealt away. So not that. I don't expect that. But something like, again, I'm higher on this guy than most people. And I know it's the defense that sucks more than anything, but Simon's coming back for Holiday blew my mind. That you could get a guy with that level of talent who just turned 26 earlier this month, and even on a bad team was a 20-plus point per game scorer over the last few years. The fact that you could get that and simultaneously offload White's declining contract, raising financially, declining talent-wise, that blew my mind.
Contract, not White's.
Holiday's contract. I want to know if there is another guy that is, if we talked about it a little bit without naming names with Keith, because I don't know the names, other than like a Nick Richards, who he said. But is there a legitimate big, not a star, but like a White when he was in San Antonio? Is there a guy that could come in here that Brad's already got his eyes on, that he's already behind the scenes, no leaks, working on trying to acquire, that is going to come in here as a big and raise his profile and, become that better player than he ever was in any of his previous stops because of how he is utilized and matured and all of these things? That's kind of what, maybe delusionally, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the next needle in a haystack, because I think that highly of this Boston front office that I feel like that's still coming. And it's not George Niang. I think there is another starting caliber big that is still going to join this team. Am I wrong about that?
Well, here's the thing. If you kind of already said this, I'm trying to do a little trade machine while I talk here.
Okay.
The thing is, you're not going to know. The beauty of this front office is you think you know what they're going to do. You have no idea what the hell they're going to do. That's why I love Brad, and I love the way this front office is kind of set up. Is like there are no leaks. Like look, we love Steve Bulpett. Steve Bulpett is a frequent guest on this show. Steve oftentimes is attributed of being the mouthpiece for Danny Ainge to get things out. Right? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. When Steve, this is nothing to do with like, Steve now versus Steve then, or Steve at Heavy versus Steve at the Boston Herald. It's Steve with this regime, Brad in charge, versus Steve with Danny Ainge in charge. I think Steve, more than anyone else, had Danny's ear and had Danny's, like a number on speed dial, if you will. Not that other people, like, hell, I could have called Danny Ainge if I felt so inclined, but Danny wasn't going to give me anything. Danny would give Steve stuff. That was the belief anyway. I don't know this to be a fact, but that's the widely shared belief among those of us who, follow the Celtics closely. It was when Bulpett says it, that's when you got to pay attention. Oh, Woj had it? All right, but has Bulpett said anything about it? That's how we felt when Ainge was there. Now it's Stevens, and I don't think anybody is getting anything from Stevens. Not Steve, not anybody. All the people that we love, nationally or locally. Brad, when is the last time a move of any significance involving the Boston Celtics happened where there was a leak about it in advance under the Brad regime? It hasn't happened. Not that I can remember. Can you?
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. They keep such tight ship that I don't think we're ever going to find out. But like as an example, like I'm just fooling around, and none of these and as Keith alluded to, none of these trades are official yet. So none of these things are actually available for you to play around with on the NBA trade machine, wherever you head. I like using Spotrac because our guy Keith Smith is always helping us out. But like if I look at the 26th season and I move to center, like Boston's going to be able to put contracts together now to acquire talent. So as we look at things, again, I'm trying to find some players that could fit this particular bill. The first guy I thought of right away was Jakob Poeltl. It's someone that Boston could probably find a way to use really well. And I'm always thinking of like, okay, so Sam Hauser makes $10 million, Niang makes $8 million. Maybe there's a way you can maybe bridge the gap to for the $19 million that Poeltl's going to make in 26-27. Like that's just an idea. You're asking me right off the top with no prep, like what could you do? That's a guy that I like that I feel like Boston could use in a multitude of ways. Who's very smart, doesn't need the ball to be happy. He's the guy that's just going to do all the dirty work, all that kind of stuff. There's the bigs that are going to be out there from the pick from. There's not going to be a ton of them, and like you're basically trying to find the next like kind of Luke Kornet guy of someone who can just pick and dive, work either side of the glass, not be a complete waste of space if you get to defend on an island. Like if he can shoot threes, that's kind of a plus. That'd be really kind of nice, but maybe not necessary anymore. Like again, they'll figure something out. But you're looking for a guy like a Jakob Poeltl or guys that make less than that.
I mean, I don't know if you or anybody else out there agrees with me on this. I would have been super excited about Mark Williams.
I don't know about that because there's a reason. Like I don't know about the medicals for that. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, the medicals for him just seem like kind of a disaster that the Lakers like immediately pivoted as soon as they possibly could. So, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. What did they find out? Like, and now Mark Williams is in Phoenix. With what Phoenix has done recently, you got any faith in him having a great year in Phoenix this year? Like, I don't know about that. I'm a little like the Mark Williams thing at first. I was like, oh, that's smart. It's young, big, it's affordable for the Lakers. But for them to immediately pull out of that, raise so many red flags to me where I'm like, you know what? I think I'm good.
That's fair.
I'm all set.
That's fair.
You know what I mean? So I'm gonna look at like as I try to do this very quickly, like cap hits for centers coming up here, and trying to find some guys that they can maybe target if Miami wants to function correctly. But like obviously there are certain guys they have no shot at. Maybe a guy Stewart. I'm Detroit, but he's kind of a big reason of who of what they do, like in their identity and their backbone. Gafford is about to re-sign. Steven Adams just re-signed. Robert Williams gives you. I don't think so with the injury history though. As much as I love him, Rashawn Holmes makes $13 million. Wendell Carter maybe with the Orlando Magic he makes $10 million. But there's like I love Jalen Duren. There's no way they're getting rid of him. There's just not a lot of available options out there. Maybe Kessler, but good luck getting that out of Danny without giving up something that you really want to give up. There's just not a ton of like quality big men out there for Boston to really pick from outside of the guys that they like between Horford and our guy Luke Kornet.
Well, we'll find out pretty soon here before the next show, and upside or downsides depending on your perspective. For those out there who believe, rightfully so, that I talk too much, Ev will have you at the wheel next week for Celtics Beat, and so hopefully, I don't know as it relates to the Celtics. There'll be plenty around the league to react to, but I'm sure we will
more
have
draft stuff. Probably more draft.
Definitely
stuff.
draft stuff, but I'm sure we'll have an idea, if not a direct resolution, on this Horford Kornet situation as well, so you can continue to explore the bigs. But our thanks again to Keith Smith from Spotrac Front Office Show on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. For Evan Valenti, I'm Adam Kaufman. As Ev reminded you earlier, make sure you check out Celtics Beat on the CLNS YouTube page, specifically the Celtics All Access page. Scroll to the bottom there on the homepage there on that site, and you will find it and find us and a whole bunch of other great Celtics content as well. So make sure you do check that out. And of course, wherever you get your podcast, rate, review, most importantly, subscribe. We thank you and welcome everyone to July. Basketball's approaching.